His hand rose like a storm cloud, and something old inside me, older than rank, older than vows, stood up to meet it. We were in the kitchen, a small rented duplex off Freedom Way, where the sea breeze of Lecky sometimes sneaks in and rattles the spoons. Darius's breath smelled of the palm wine he swore he wasn't drinking anymore. He'd smashed the lid of the pepper soup pot with his fist because it wasn't hot enough, because the day hadn't bent low enough for him. Words flew, then his palm climbed into the air. I caught his wrist mid-flight. It wasn't magic. It was muscle memory. Thumb to tendon, twist, sidestep, weight drop, and the same man who called himself my husband was suddenly on his knees beside the dusty blue cabinet. The wooden spoon clattered away like a scared lizard. He stared at me the way a child stares at a masquerade, a mix of fear and fury, something ancient and stupid wrestling in his eyes. "You!" he choked, teeth bared. "Maya, let go." "Stand down," I said, my voice low and flat, the kind of voice that can hold a room of angry recruits. "Now!" He tried to lunge and I anchored him. The movement was clean. I pivoted, guiding his wrist, and pressed until the joint thought better of pride. He grunted. His other hand reached for my neck. I blocked with my forearm, turned his shoulder, and he folded to the ground. The cheap tiles kissed his cheek. "Who are you?" he croaked. I stared at him from above, heart steady, every doorway mapped in my mind, every corner and exit. The ceiling fan clicked, clicked, clicked. "I'm your wife," I said, and it sounded wrong in my mouth, like a word in a language I was still learning. Then I took a breath. "And I'm Captain Maya Johnson, military police. You just tried to hit an officer." Silence hovered. The pot hissed behind me, steam clouding the air with chili and goat meat and something like grief. The first time I learned a wrist lock, I was 19, and my instructor looked like a tree, wide and rooted. He told us, "If a flood is coming, you do not argue with the water. You step aside and you guide it." Darius was a flood I had been trying to love. Tonight I stepped aside. He swore under his breath and struggled, head twisting, to look up at me. The gold band on his finger flashed in the kitchen light, the one he slid onto my hand 3 months ago under a canopy of cloth flowers and borrowed dreams. "You never told me—" He stopped, swallowed. "Captain?" I eased pressure, not mercy, calculation. "You don't hold a man forever. You teach him the floor." He sat back on his heels, nursing his wrist, eyes hot and hateful. A tiny white scar under his left ear glowed against his dark skin. I'd never asked him about it. Darius kept his stories like locked rooms. I had loved him anyway. "Get up," I said. He stood, towering and trembling. He wasn't a small man. He had that easy strength of a footballer who stopped playing, but never stopped carrying himself like the field was still under his feet. Tonight that strength was smoke around a knife. Dangerous only if you leaned in. "This is our home," he said, breathing hard, voice low and dangerous. "We don't bring army into this house." "This is our home," I said, "so we don't bring violence into this house." He looked at me then, with something lost in his face, like a boy who reached for a cookie and found a cobra. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because in the honeyed days of courtship, I wanted to be soft. Because the uniform makes people perform around you, and I wanted us to meet as two people, and not as a rank and a shadow. Because the quiet joy of a simple life had been whispering at my door, and I had opened it like a foolish queen. Because love sometimes is a mask we wear for ourselves." "Because you never asked," I said, and it was true and not true enough. A pot boiled over. I shut the gas off and lifted it carefully, the broth sloshing. He watched me like I was a stranger moving through his house. The wall clock ticked us into a new minute that felt older than the ocean. He flung his hand toward the table. "You cooked and waited. That's what wives do. Don't embarrass me with this." He shook his aching wrist like it was the cause of all our troubles. I set the pot down. "Wives are not punching bags. Husbands are not kings. We are partners." He laughed once, a sharp, dry sound. "Partners? My mother said I married a stubborn American girl with Lagos legs. She said you walk like someone who owns a road." "My mother said you can't know a river by looking at it from the bridge," I said. "You must step down to the water." We stared at each other across the table as the night pressed its ear to our window. Somewhere outside, a generator coughed to life. Somewhere closer, my phone vibrated on the counter. Darius's eyes flicked to the phone, then away. Something darted across his face. I have chased faces for lies for years. They always leave footprints. I picked up the phone. The message was from a number saved under Auntie K. She wasn't my aunt. It was a code, the kind you only use when you live two lives. Auntie K. Status? Are you safe? Neighbor reports noise. Do you need us to roll by? We had a training run nearby. Nothing public. My unit sometimes monitors the area because the back road to the expressway had become a night market for boys who sell more than oranges. I'd told them I was off duty tonight and reachable if needed. I typed back with one thumb. I'm fine. Stand by. Darius eyed the phone again, then reached for the folded cloth on the chair, unrolling it like a bandage. Inside lay his second phone, the one he kept for business. I had never seen the screen on. He held it like a secret animal and tapped quickly. Messages flashed. I saw a contact name, Driver M, and then a line of text popped up like a snake from a basket. Driver M. Is the package ready? Pick up in 40. Confirm. I felt the ground tilt, very slightly, the way it does when the body prepares to run or fight. Package. Confirm. 40 minutes. In training, we run words like these through a filter. Is it nothing? Is it something? Is it the thing? I had told myself for weeks that Darius's late-night calls were about a construction gig, the one he said would finally lift us. I had told myself a lot of small mercies. Tonight, they all expired. What package? I asked, voice careful. He blinked slow. Work. What kind of work calls me a package? I said. He smiled, and it was the smile I used to love, the one that made me ignore the broken tile by the door, and the way he never met my eyes when I asked about money. I saw the smile's bones tonight. It was a mask over a hungry face. You hear yourself? He said. Always suspect, always judge. This is why I don't tell you anything. Your soldier brain turns shadows into men. I stepped closer. He didn't step back. Men like him learn dominance, like a song. What are you moving, Darius? I asked. Don't raise your voice in my house, he said. I hadn't raised it. The quiet made him angrier. He lifted his chin. You think because you manhandled my wrist, you can manhandle my life? You and your army voice. Who do you think you are? I could have said, the woman who pays the rent every other month when your hustle is waiting for wire. I could have said, the person who taught you how to budget because your mother's advice was always pray harder. I could have said, the daughter of a woman who never let a man's thunder drown her rain. I could have said a lot of things. I said one, I'm the person who will not let you destroy yourself in my name. We stood at the edge of something. In Folktales, the old women say that when a man lifts his hand, he lifts the roof of his ancestors. All their shame and stories fall on him. He raised his hand a second time, slowly, eyes locked on mine like a dare. This time it wasn't a slap. It was a test. Which life would I choose, soft or steel? I chose. I stepped in, closed the distance, and used one firm movement to place his hand flat on the table. My other hand pressed his shoulder down. He gasped, not in pain, but in surprise. Listen, I said, voice low, steady. If you ever raise your hand at me again, I will cuff you, call it in, and you will answer to more than my anger. You will answer to the law. He tried to laugh and failed. You wouldn't do that to your husband. Don't make me choose between the law and the lie we told the pastor, I said. He stared at me long, his chest rising and falling like the ocean when it changes its mind. Then his gaze flicked to the second phone again. It buzzed on the chair, jittery as a beetle. Another message lit the screen. Driver M. Boss, confirm. They want her unmarked. No noise. Her, my skin turned to glass. The stove hissed. Outside, a motorcycle rattled past the gate. Darius snatched up the phone and locked it, but not before I saw the last word of the previous message's thread. Bride. Who? I asked, my mouth dry, the words small in the large room of my fear. He said nothing. The front gate creaked. Headlights washed through the curtains, flooding the kitchen with pale rivers of light. Tires crunched gravel. A car door thudded, then another. Voices, low and careless, drifted in. Darius looked at me, then at the locked phone, then toward the door. His face drained. "They're early," he whispered. I took one step toward the doorway, eyes narrowing. Hand already reaching, not for a weapon, because tonight I wasn't armed, but for the part of myself that does not panic. Darius grabbed my wrist, not roughly this time. Not yet. His voice was hoarse. "Maya," he said, "whatever happens, don't open that door." The knock came, 3 hard raps that rattled the metal frame, and a man's voice slid through the evening like a knife wrapped in velvet. "Boss," the voice called, "we're here for the package." The knock came again, 3 raps, patient and sure, as if the knuckles knew the house better than we did. I felt the air thin in my lungs. But my training made a small square of calm around my heartbeat. I let my voice drop into that square. "Who are they, Darius?" He didn't answer. He moved to the sink and turned the faucet on, full blast like a child hiding a whisper under running water. Then he leaned in, mouth close to my ear, the act intimate and desperate at once. "Please," he whispered, "go to the bedroom. Lock the door. Don't speak." I held his gaze. "Tell me what's at the door." The faucet hissed. The knock came a 3rd time, and the velvet knife voice grew harder. "Boss, time." Darius swallowed. I saw the story form behind his eyes, a quick, ugly thing. "It's a job," he said at last, almost pleading. "I don't want you in it." "What job asks for a bride?" I asked. "What job calls a person a package?" He flinched. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" Another car door slammed, closer now, the sound of it like a slap against the night. The landlord's dogs down the street began to bark, first lazy, then high and excited, dominoes of noise toppling toward our gate. Darius's second phone trembled on the chair, and he caught it in his palm. He didn't unlock it. He just held it like it could stop time. "Bedroom, Maya," he said. "I will handle it." "No." He stared at me, shocked, as if the word had never happened to him before. The faucet ran and ran. Steam from the pepper soup fogged the window over the sink and drew a white veil between us and the world. I reached past him and turned the water off. Silence fell heavy. We could hear the men breathe outside. We could hear our fear answer them. I looked at the door. It was a simple metal sheet with a lock we'd replaced after the carpenter said our old one made thieves feel invited. My hand moved to the key still in the keyhole from when I came in with groceries. I slid it out and put it in my pocket. My voice was soft and careful. "You have 10 seconds to tell me the truth," I said, and then I stop asking and start acting. He rubbed his sore wrist and stared at the table as if the answer might be written in the wood grain. When he finally spoke, the words came in a pile. "It's a pickup. I don't know the full thing. They said it's a family situation. A runaway bride. They're returning her before she makes a big mistake. I'm just the middle. I take her from one car to the next. No noise. Easy money." The back of my neck prickled. Threads from 3 different training briefings braided themselves in my mind. About forced marriages dressed up as family reunions, about gangs that return girls to men who bought them, about couriers who say I didn't know when the cuffs close. "Runaway bride," I repeated. "Who told you that story?" "People I trust," he said too quickly. "Names." "Stop," I nodded once. "So you don't know if she wants to go," I said. He said nothing. That was an answer. The velvet voice grew impatient. "Boss, last call. We step in." Darius looked at the door. His jaw worked. "I needed the money," he muttered. "Your army paycheck is not both of us, Maya. I am tired of waiting for blessings." "And this is a blessing?" I said. "Dragging a woman into a car at night?" He lifted his shoulders, helpless and angry and small all at once. "I'm not dragging anyone. I'm just—" "A link in a chain," I finished for him. "Links still hold." He closed his eyes and breathed out through his nose. "Please," he said again. "Bedroom." The gate hinges shrieked as metal kissed metal. Someone had opened it. Gravel protested under shoes. The footsteps were slow, marching the length of the walkway to our front steps as if measuring our fear. My training mapped 3 exits: front door, kitchen window, back bathroom window. The back window was small but passable if you didn't mind breaking a tile lip. The kitchen window opened onto a narrow alley fenced with wire and gossip. The front door led to men we did not know. My uniform hung in the closet, neat and clean. My badge lay in the top drawer of the bedside table, next to my mother's Sunday handkerchief. My service sidearm was in a lockbox at the barracks because I was off duty and thought love could keep me safe. Darius moved toward the door. "Stop," I said. He turned, eyes fever bright. "If I don't go, they come in. If they come in, they see you. It becomes messy. I will walk out, settle it, and they will leave." "Settle how?" His hand lifted, then fell. "With words." "You mean with a lie," I said. "You will send a woman to a car with a soft story in your mouth and blood on your steps." His face hardened. "You think you are God because you wear a badge." "No," I said. "I think I am responsible because I took an oath." The steps stopped at the door. Knuckles tapped the metal with the softness men use right before they grow teeth. "Boss D," the voice murmured, sweet like tea. "Open." Darius stood in front of the door and reached for the bolt. I stepped in front of him. His eyes went wide. "What are you doing?" "I will open," I said. He shook his head sharply, panic finally breaking through his pride. "No, if they see you—" "They need to see somebody," I said. "Let them see a wall." I lifted my chin and unrolled my shoulders the way we do on parade, not to show off, but to become a line no one wants to cross. I breathed in, slow and deep, and found that small square of calm again. Inside it, I spoke like an officer who had chewed glass and swallowed it with a smile. "You will stand behind me," I said. "You will not speak unless I ask you to. If they step in uninvited, I will make my call. If the woman is here against her will, she is not leaving with any man. If I am wrong, if she wants to go, I will apologize and step aside. Those are my terms." "Your terms?" he hissed. "In my house?" "In our house," I said. "In a world where women are not boxes." His eyes glittered. Then he did something I did not expect. He nodded once. It wasn't agreement. It was surrender to a force he did not yet understand. He stepped back, hands slightly up, palms open, wrists loose. It was almost a soldier's posture. For a heartbeat, I saw the boy he must have been. Fast, stubborn, eager to impress a coach or a father. The boy had made a man who lost his way. I slid the bolt back and cracked the door just enough to let a slice of night in. Two men stood on the steps. One was tall and agreeable looking, with a soft belly under a crisp shirt and a smile that did not reach his eyes. The other was narrow, his shoulders like wire hangers under a black hoodie, his gaze in the habit of counting exits. A silver Corolla idled at the curb, exhaust smoke drawing a lazy ribbon. In the back seat behind tinted glass, a shadow moved, a small shape, head lowered. "Evening, madam," the smiling one said, tipping his chin. "We're here for Boss D." "He's busy," I said. "State your purpose." The smile sharpened. "We deal with boss, not secretary." "I'm not his secretary," I said. "I'm his wife." Their eyes did a quick trip down my frame and back up, a measuring that made the porch feel colder. The narrow one's mouth twitched. "Package is ready?" the smiling man asked, peering over my shoulder with theatrical politeness. "There is no package in this home," I said. "There is a person in your car. Does she want to be there?" He blinked, slow. "I don't understand your meaning." "It wasn't a complicated question," I said. From the car, a hand rose in the rear window, pale against the tint, fingers splayed, then withdrew like a frightened fish. My stomach pulled tight. My voice went even flatter. "Unlock the door," I said. "Let me speak to her." The narrow one laughed quietly. "Are you police?" "Are you?" I asked. The smiling man's face cooled. His eyes slid to Darius behind me. "Boss," he called over my shoulder. "Control your house." I didn't turn. "He's not speaking tonight," I said. "But I am. If that girl is here against her will, you are about to make a very expensive mistake." The narrow one took a single step up, close enough that I could see a small scar under his right eye, a crescent like a thumbprint. "Or you are making one," he said. "We give respect. We take respect. Don't block road." I let the silence sit like a stone between us. Somewhere, a baby cried, and a woman hushed it with a song that had more patience than this porch. The smiling man scratched his chin and sighed like a father indulging a stubborn child. "Madam," he said, tone smooth again, "we are family friends. Bride panicked before wedding. We are escorting her to her people so elders can talk sense. That is all." "That is a story," I said. "I want the truth." He opened his hands. "The truth is money wasted if we stand here. Please step aside." "Unlock the car," I repeated. 1 minute conversation. If she says, "I want to go," I won't stop you. But if she says no, he shook his head, chuckling. "Madam watches movies." The narrow one's hand slipped into his hoodie pocket. He didn't draw anything, but the movement cast a long shadow. Darius, behind me, shifted his weight, a frightened sound rattling in his throat. The pepper soup smell reached out from the kitchen like a ghost of a normal evening. All of it felt too real and not real enough. I slid my hand into my pocket and wrapped my fingers around the cold key. The shape anchored me. I took a breath. "Final time," I said. "Open the door." The smiling man looked at my eyes and decided something. He smiled wider, stepped down, and flicked his wrist at the driver. The rear lock clicked. The door hung shut, unlatched. "Be our guest," he said, stepping aside with a sweep of his arm. 1 minute, then we go." I nodded once, stepped off the threshold, and moved toward the car. The narrow one kept close, a shadow to my shadow. I smelled petrol and rain that hadn't fallen yet. I put my palm on the rear handle and pulled. The door swung wide. Inside, hunched on the seat, was a girl in a wedding dress. Lace cheap but careful, veil askew, braids pinned in a rush. Her eyes were wide and wet. She could have been 19. She could have been younger. Her left wrist wore a red welt shaped like fingers. "Hey," I said softly, kneeling a little so I wouldn't tower over her. "My name is Maya. Do you want to go with these men?" Her eyes flicked to the smiling man, to the narrow one, to Darius pale in the doorway, then back to me. She opened her mouth. Her lips trembled. The night held its breath. She began. The driver's phone lit on the console. A new message bloomed on the screen, plain as a shout. "Change of plan. New location. Move now. Police on the road." The smiling man saw it the same time I did. His pleasant face closed like a door. He reached for the girl's arm. She jolted back and grabbed my sleeve. "Please," she whispered, voice breaking into the quiet like a bell. "Don't let them take me." The narrow one's hand came out of his hoodie with something small and ugly in it, low and close to his thigh. And then from somewhere at the end of the street, a siren wailed once. Short, sharp, and far too close to be a mistake. The wail of the siren rolled down the street like a warning from the ancestors. It wasn't long, just one sharp cry, but it split the night open. The men on the porch froze. The girl in the back seat tightened her grip on my sleeve, eyes wide, chest heaving. The narrow one's hand with the weapon twitched. He shoved it back into his hoodie as if the sound had burned him. The smiling man's mask cracked for the first time. His jaw clenched. Darius stood in the doorway, sweat darkening his shirt at the armpits, his eyes darting between me, the car, and the street. His silence was louder than any scream. The driver leaned out of the front seat window, face pale in the glow of the dashboard. "We have to move, now!" The smiling man hissed, low and sharp. He looked at me, then at the girl, then back to the car. "Boss D," he called again, his tone colder, clipped. "Control your house, or your house controls you." I straightened, still kneeling half in, half out of the car. My hand rested lightly on the girl's wrist, the touch not heavy but grounding. My voice was steady. "She doesn't want to go." The girl's lips parted, the words almost a whisper. "No, I don't." It was enough. A declaration, however small, carries weight when the world tries to silence you. The smiling man's eyes went flat. "Then we take her." I stood in one smooth motion, pivoting so the car door swung wide between the girl and the men like a shield. My voice dropped into the tone I'd used on checkpoints, on barracks floors, on men who thought they could bluff the law. "You take one step closer," I said, "and you are not leaving this street tonight." The narrow one laughed under his breath, but it wasn't humor. It was disbelief. He stepped forward anyway. I shifted my stance, one foot braced, weight balanced. My training wasn't just for show. Even unarmed, I was a problem most men never expected in a wife's skin. Then the siren wailed again, closer this time. Blue light flickered faint at the far end of the road. The smiling man spat into the gravel, hissed something under his breath in Yoruba, and jerked his head toward the car. Move! The driver slammed the gear stick. The engine roared. The narrow one pulled the door shut with a slam, locking the girl inside again. No! She screamed, pressing her palms against the glass. I lunged forward, fingers brushing the metal frame, but the car leapt like a frightened goat. Gravel sprayed my legs. In seconds, the Corolla was shooting down the road, taillights bleeding red into the night. Wait! I shouted, but my voice drowned under the roar of the engine. The smiling man and the narrow one didn't follow. They backed away, their eyes never leaving mine. You should have stayed in the bedroom, the smiling one muttered. Then they turned and sprinted, vanishing into the alley before the flash of blue lights curved into view. The siren wailed again, and this time it stopped right at our gate. A battered police Hilux truck screeched to a halt, tires chewing the gravel. Two uniformed officers jumped out, rifles slung across their shoulders. One shone a flashlight at me, at the doorway, at the empty road beyond. What's happening here? The taller one barked. Who called in disturbance? Before I could answer, Darius stepped forward, voice cracked but loud. Nothing, just family matter. My wife is stubborn. I cut him off with one word. Stop! The officers swung their eyes to me. I reached slowly into my pocket, pulled out my ID wallet, and flipped it open. The golden crest of the military police caught the beam of the flashlight. Captain Maya Johnson, I said, voice even. You just missed an attempted abduction. They're heading east in a silver Corolla. Registration. I paused, recalling the plate I'd glimpsed when the headlights first cut across it. KRD 248YY. The taller officer's brows shot up. His partner swore under his breath and scrambled back into the Hilux. The taller one spoke into his radio, rapid and urgent. Darius's mouth hung open, his lies shriveling before they had time to breathe. I turned to him, my words cutting sharper than any slap. You brought this into our home. He swallowed hard, unable to meet my eyes. The taller officer looked between us, suspicion crawling across his face. Captain, who's the man? My husband, I said. The word landed heavy and wrong in my throat. The officer's eyes narrowed. Is he involved? Darius raised his hands, trembling. No, I was just... The radio crackled from the Hilux. Silver Corolla spotted, heading toward 3rd Mainland. Units in pursuit. My chest loosened slightly. There was still a chance. The taller officer nodded at me. We'll take it from here. But Captain, you'll need to make a statement. Tonight. I nodded. My voice was quiet. I know. The officer jogged back to the truck, and the Hilux sped off, sirens screaming into the night. Silence returned to the street, heavy and accusing. I turned slowly toward Darius. You lied to me, I said. His eyes brimmed with a kind of fear I hadn't seen before. Not fear of me, not exactly, but of what came after. Maya, I didn't know. They told me it was just a job. Just transport. Transport? My voice cracked, sharp with fury. That was a girl in a wedding dress begging for help, and you called her a package. He tried to reach for me, hands shaking. I swear I didn't know it was like this. Please, Maya, you have to believe me. I stepped back out of his reach. I don't have to do anything. His face fell. You're my wife. I'm an officer, I said. And tonight, you reminded me which one comes first. The girl's scream still echoed in my ears. Her hand on my sleeve, her whisper, please don't let them take me, burned into my skin. I knew one thing with the weight of a promise. I wasn't letting this end here. I picked up my phone, scrolling fast, fingers steady despite the storm inside me. A number blinked back at me. Auntie K, I typed. Abduction confirmed. Bride. Car in pursuit. Husband complicit. Then I pressed send. Behind me, Darius made a sound like a man drowning in his own throat. Maya, what are you going to do? I looked at him, at the man I thought I knew, the man I had married only months ago, and I answered with the only truth I had left. I'm going to bring her back. And as I spoke, headlights swept the street again. Different this time. Slower. More deliberate. Another vehicle turned into view, black and heavy, rolling toward our gate with the patience of a predator. Darius's face drained of blood. His lips moved soundlessly. "They're not done," he whispered. The engine growled closer, and I braced myself. The black SUV rolled into view, a machine that seemed to breathe menace. Its headlights cut sharp cones into the night, sweeping across the compound like searchlights. My body tightened the way it always did before combat, heart steady, mind calculating. I stepped slightly forward, shoulders square, blocking Darius instinctively, though part of me hated the irony of protecting him after what he'd done. The SUV idled just outside the gate, its engine purring low. Then the driver killed the headlights. Darkness swallowed the street, except for the dim glow of the neighbor's lantern flickering through a window. Silence followed, heavier than the air itself. "Who are they?" I whispered without looking at Darius. He didn't answer. I turned sharply, catching his eyes in the weak light. "Who are they, Darius?" His throat bobbed. They're not supposed to come here. They never come here." "You brought them here," I said, my voice flat. "You opened the door." "No, I—" He broke off, guilt strangling the rest. The SUV door opened with a metallic groan. A man stepped out slowly, deliberate in every movement. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that bent a room before he even spoke. His dark suit glistened faintly under the street lamp. He didn't raise his voice, but it carried easily across the compound. "Boss D," he called, calm and commanding. "You disappoint us." The words landed like stones in my stomach. Whoever this man was, he wasn't just muscle. He was authority. The air around him was heavy with the certainty of someone used to obedience. Darius froze, his breath shuddering. I could see it now. The fear in his eyes wasn't just for me or the police. It was for this man. The stranger's gaze shifted and locked onto me. His voice cooled. "And who is this?" I took a step forward, chin high. "Captain Maya Johnson, military police." His head tilted slightly as if I had amused him. "Ah," he said. "That explains why our evening took an unfortunate turn." The SUV door shut behind him with a thud. The sound seemed to close us into a cage. "Let the girl go," I said. My tone was controlled but firm, the kind that made young recruits stand straighter. He chuckled softly. "The girl? Captain? You misunderstand. That girl doesn't belong to you. She belongs to her people. We are simply ensuring tradition is respected." "Tradition doesn't put bruises on a bride's wrist," I shot back. For the first time, his smile faltered. He stepped closer, his shoes crunching the gravel. "Captain," he said quietly, "you stand in the way of things larger than yourself. Family honor, promises sealed with more than words. This is not your fight." "Every stolen girl is my fight," I answered, my voice sharp enough to cut. He studied me, his expression unreadable. Then he turned his eyes on Darius. "You didn't tell us your wife was special." Darius shrank back, stammering. I didn't know she'd—" The man raised one finger, and Darius fell silent like a boy caught cheating in church. I stepped forward again. "The police already have the plate number of the Corolla. Your men won't get far. Walk away now, and you can still salvage your night." The man laughed once, deep and low. "Police?" He spat to the side. "Do you think Lagos police will stop us? They'll take their share and wave us through. You should know better, Captain." I didn't flinch. "Try me." For a moment, the only sound was the slow ticking of the SUV's cooling engine. His men were still inside. I could see silhouettes shifting, restless. The leader folded his hands behind his back, as if considering a chess move. "You're brave," he said finally, "but bravery without power is just noise." He leaned slightly toward me. "And tonight, Captain, we hold the power." "Not if that girl testifies," I said. He smiled again, sly. "If she testifies, but she won't. She will be dressed in silk tomorrow morning and smiling for photographs by noon. Everyone will clap, and no one will remember tonight." Anger surged hot in my veins, but I forced my face to remain cold. I knew his type. Men who believed in inevitability, who thought fear was destiny. They thrived on silence. I raised my voice just enough for the neighbors to hear through their thin walls. I am a captain in the military police. If you take another step onto this property, I will consider it an attack. I will call for backup. And I promise you, this street will flood with soldiers before you make it to the expressway. The man's smile vanished entirely. He stared at me, measuring, calculating. His men shifted in the SUV, waiting for his signal. My heart pounded, but I held his gaze unblinking. Finally, he exhaled, long and slow. You've cost us time, Captain. Time is expensive. He took one deliberate step back toward the SUV. We will speak again. He opened the door, sliding inside. The engine roared to life. The SUV backed out, its tires grinding against gravel, then sped away into the night. Silence fell again, broken only by the distant bark of dogs. My knees felt suddenly heavy, but I stayed standing, jaw tight. Behind me, Darius whispered, "They'll come back. You don't understand." I spun on him, my anger snapping like a whip. I understand perfectly. You sold your hands to men who steal daughters, and you thought you could hide it in my house. He staggered back, as if my words had struck harder than any fist. Maya, I didn't know it would be like this. I swear. I thought it was just money. Money for what? To cover your debts? To buy beer with your friends? To play boss in streets you don't belong in? I stepped closer, my fingers stabbing the air between us. That girl is out there, terrified, and you almost handed her over. And for what? Pride? He dropped into a chair, face in his hands. His shoulders shook, though I couldn't tell if it was guilt or fear. I pulled out my phone again, fingers moving quickly. I sent a voice note to Auntie K, my unit lead. Target vehicle diverted. Black SUV intervened. Bride still in custody, likely forced marriage trafficking ring. I am compromised on site. Request interception at 3rd Mainland and adjacent routes. Will provide statement immediately after. Over. A response came almost instantly. Received. Stay put. Units mobilized. Relief flickered, but only briefly. Relief without action was hollow. The girl's face still hovered in my mind, her whisper echoing, "Don't let them take me." I turned back to Darius. You're coming with me to give your statement. Every name you know, every number, every place they've met you. You will tell it all. He shook his head violently. No. If I talk, they'll kill me. I leaned down, eyes level with his. If you don't talk, I will make sure you face trial. Military court or civil, it doesn't matter. You'll rot. At least talking gives you a chance to live. His lips trembled. Maya, please. We can run. We can leave Lagos. Start fresh. Run! I cut him off. That girl can't run, and how many others like her can't? This ends tonight. Tears spilled down his cheeks. I didn't mean for it to be like this. I didn't mean... Meaning doesn't matter, I said coldly. Choices do. I grabbed my jacket from the chair and slipped it on. My uniform wasn't here, but my bearing was. I would stand as what I was, with or without the fabric. The street was still, but the weight of the night pressed heavy. Somewhere distant engines roared. Somewhere a girl sat in the back of a speeding Corolla, praying for rescue. I closed the gate behind me and stepped into the road. My decision was already made. Stay if you want, I said over my shoulder, but I'm not waiting. I'm going to bring her back. And as I walked into the darkness, Darius's broken voice followed me, trembling and small. They'll kill us both. I didn't look back, because if there's one thing I had learned in years of service, it's this. A soldier doesn't choose when the fight comes. The fight chooses her, and tonight, it had chosen me. The night stretched long and heavy, but my stride was steady. My boots beat against the uneven asphalt as I headed toward the barracks checkpoint, 2 streets away. I could still smell the pepper soup in my hair, still hear the rasp of Darius's broken excuses, still feel the girl's trembling hand clutching my sleeve. The road ahead glimmered faintly with puddles from an earlier rain. Streetlights flickered like tired guardians. Somewhere in the shadows, the SUV's taillights had already disappeared. But my mind was clear. Every second mattered. My phone buzzed against my hip. A message from Auntie K. Units closing net near 3rd Mainland. Suspects resisting. Bride not confirmed secured. Proceed with caution. Meet at Yaba Division HQ. I exhaled. Good. The wheel was turning. But my gut told me this was no simple case of hand her over, clap hands, and go home. Men like the one in the SUV didn't leave trails unless they wanted them found. Behind me, footsteps slapped against the road. Quick, uneven. I turned sharply, instinct already pulling me into a defensive stance. It was Darius, panting, chest heaving. Maya, wait! My jaw tightened. Go back, Darius. You've done enough. He staggered closer, grabbing at my arm. I can't stay. If I stay, they'll come back. If I go with you, maybe I can explain. Maybe I can help. I jerked my arm free. Help? The word cut like glass. You put her in danger. I didn't know, he cried. I swear I thought it was just... I stepped into his space, my voice sharp and low. Stop saying you didn't know. You knew enough to lie. You knew enough to hide your phone. You knew enough to invite devils to our door. His mouth opened, then shut. Shame pooled in his eyes. I turned away. Stay if you want, but don't follow me. Yet when I started walking again, I could hear his steps behind mine, quieter this time, as if he understood he was following a storm he couldn't control. By the time we reached the Yaba Division HQ, the compound was alive with motion. Officers spilled across the courtyard, radios crackling, trucks revving. A generator hummed somewhere in the back. The air smelled of petrol and sweat. Auntie K was there, her frame lean and straight as iron, her headscarf tied tight. She caught sight of me and strode forward, eyes like knives. Captain Johnson, she said, voice clipped. Report. I saluted quickly. Abduction attempt at my residence. Victim, unidentified female, approximately 19, bridal attire. Suspects, silver Corolla, Reggie KRD 248YY. Secondary presence, black SUV, leader identified, tall male, mid-40s, dark suit. Command presence, coordinated. Suspects fled east. Auntie K nodded sharply. Units intercepted the Corolla near Oyingbo. Vehicle crashed. 2 suspects in custody. Bride injured but alive. She's been taken to hospital. Relief slammed into me, so fierce it made my knees weak. Alive. Injured but alive. That was enough for now. Captain, Auntie K continued, lowering her voice. Your husband's name appeared in the suspect's phone. They called him Boss D. Explain. My stomach clenched. Behind me, Darius flinched. I turned slowly, my voice cold. He thought he was running a pickup. He knew more than he admitted. He will cooperate, Darius's voice cracked. Maya, please. Quiet, I snapped. Auntie K studied him, then turned back to me. Captain, your personal involvement compromises protocol. We'll take his statement. You will step back. The words hit like bullets. Step back? When the fight was right in front of me? With respect, ma'am, I said. I am the only one who saw the SUV leader's face. I can identify him. If I step back now, we lose momentum. Her eyes narrowed. She hated when officers let personal bleed into duty. But after a long pause, she exhaled. One chance, you stay. But the line between soldier and wife must not blur again. Am I clear? Yes, ma'am. She turned, barking orders. Secure the suspects. Sweep the area. Captain Johnson, you're with me. The holding cells reeked of sweat and iron. 2 men sat inside, wrists cuffed, faces swollen from the crash. They sneered when they saw me, but their eyes flicked nervously to Auntie K's uniform. The taller suspect spat blood onto the floor. You're wasting time. She's gone already. You can't stop it. Stop what? I asked, voice flat. He grinned through cracked lips. The wedding? Tomorrow morning. Lecky, big man's daughter. She runs. We bring her back. That's all. Who's the big man? I pressed. He only laughed, shaking his head. Ask your husband. Darius, standing behind the bars, paled visibly. My chest burned, fury threatening to spill over. But I kept my voice even. You'll tell us everything, or you'll sit here until the walls crumble. The suspect leaned back, eyes gleaming. Walls crumble faster than you think. Later in the briefing room, a map of Lagos sprawled across the table. Pins marked routes, safe houses, checkpoints. The Corolla was one piece, but the SUV, the man in the suit, was the true spider in the web. The girl's name is Ifeoma, Auntie Kay said, pointing at a folder. 19. Father is Chief Obanamdi, business tycoon. Wedding arranged with another chief's son. She tried to escape. They sent dogs after her. The pieces clicked like a gun chamber in my head. Money, power, a girl sold in silk. Tomorrow, Annie Kay said, they'll try again. And this time the ceremony will bury her voice, unless we stop it. I leaned forward, eyes burning. Then we stop it. Annie Kay studied me. This is bigger than one case, Captain. Trafficking disguised as tradition. Men with power, men with reach. If you step in, you step into war. I didn't blink. Then we fight. That night, as I sat alone on the barracks cot, I thought of the girl's whisper. Please don't let them take me. I thought of Darius, pale and shaking, a husband who raised his hand against me, but crumbled before men who owned his fear. And I thought of the SUV leader's words. We will speak again. My phone buzzed once more. A message, unsaved number. Captain Johnson, you are brave, but bravery costs. Choose wisely. Stay away tomorrow, or the bride won't be the only one buried. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then I locked it and lay back, eyes on the ceiling. Tomorrow was not just about Ifeoma anymore. It was about every girl silenced by deals struck in back rooms, every woman treated like a package, every promise of love broken by greed. The fight had chosen me, and I was ready. Viewers, if you were in Maya's shoes, what would you do? Step back and stay safe, or step forward and risk everything to stop the wedding? Comment below where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe and share this story so more people can join the discussion. The morning sun rose heavy and golden, but its warmth didn't touch me. I stood at the edge of the parade ground, watching the city stretch awake. Lagos mornings are a strange symphony. Generators coughing, vendors calling, horns blaring as Danfo buses bullied their way through narrow streets. To anyone else, it was just another day. But for me, this was the day of reckoning. The wedding was set for noon in Lekki, inside the compound of Chief Obanamdi, a tycoon whose name echoed like thunder in markets and boardrooms alike. The same man who had raised his daughter like property, not blood. Ifeoma would be dressed in silk, surrounded by dancers and drummers, while inside her chest her heart would beat like a caged bird. And unless we stopped it, she would be handed to a stranger, her cry drowned under the sound of talking drums. I adjusted my jacket. My uniform was locked in the armory, but Auntie Kay had approved plain clothes for this operation. Less eyes, more ears, she'd said. Still, the weight of my badge against my hip was enough to remind me who I was. Behind me, Darius shuffled nervously. They had allowed him to remain under my watch, but only because he'd agreed to cooperate. His face was drawn, his shirt wrinkled, his pride stripped down to the bone. Maya, he muttered, this is suicide. You don't understand who Chief Namdi is. Men like him, I cut him off. Men like him thrive because too many people say those words. Men like him, like he's untouchable, like his money makes him God. Darius flinched. I'm just saying, he won't hesitate. He'll crush you. I turned sharply, my voice cold. He already tried. He sent men to my house. He sent men to drag his daughter like stolen goods. And you almost helped him. So don't stand there and talk to me about hesitation. He looked away, shame etched across his face. By mid-morning, we were on the move. A convoy of unmarked cars rolled quietly through the streets, weaving between Kiki riders and Okada bikes. In my ear, the comm crackled with Auntie Kay's voice. Remember, no reckless moves. We're here to extract Ifeoma safely. Crowd control is key. Chief's compound will be heavily guarded. Half family, half hired muscle. Blend. Wait for the window. I pressed the earpiece closer. Copy that. The cars slowed as Lekki's wide gates and manicured lawns came into view. Drummers already pounded rhythms that carried on the wind. Women in shimmering lace wrappers danced at the entrance, ululations piercing the air. A wedding in full bloom. But beneath the music, tension thrummed like a hidden drum. Our car pulled over 2 streets away. I stepped out, adjusting my head tie and smoothing the borrowed wrapper tied around my waist. From the outside, I was just another guest. But inside, every nerve hummed. Ready. Darius stayed close, his hands shaking. "Are we really going in?" he whispered. I didn't look at him. "You're going in because you know the faces. You'll point out the men from the SUV. And if you try anything foolish, I'll cuff you in front of the elders and drag you out like a thief. Understood?" He swallowed hard. "Understood." The compound was a blaze of color, arches of flowers, silk canopies, men in agbadas embroidered with gold, women shimmering like rivers of fabric. Laughter rang out, children darted under tables, and waiters balanced trays of jollof rice and peppered meat. At the center, under a massive white canopy, sat the bride, Ifeoma. Her face was veiled, her body wrapped in gold lace, but her shoulders trembled. Her hands twisted the edge of her wrapper, restless and desperate. She looked like a doll displayed for sale, her eyes far away even as relatives danced around her. My chest tightened. She was still here, still alive, still waiting for someone to see her. Beside her sat the groom, a plump young man in a rich burgundy agbada, smirking proudly as his friends clapped him on the back. His eyes never touched Ifeoma. They were fixed on the cameras in the praise. And then I saw him, the man from the SUV. He stood near the elders' table, tall and dark in another sharp suit, his hands clasped behind him. His gaze swept the crowd with quiet authority. When his eyes brushed past me, I lowered mine slightly, blending into the sea of women swaying to the music. But inside, my blood turned to steel. That was the man who had promised, "We will speak again." The ceremony began with drums and chants. The bride was led forward, kneeling before her father. Chief Namdi, heavyset and regal in his flowing agbada, raised his hand over her bowed head. His voice boomed through the microphone. "Today we honor tradition. Today we join 2 great families. My daughter Ifeoma will no longer wander. She will be anchored, respected, and fruitful." Cheers erupted. The drummers pounded harder. The groom's friends whooped, but Ifeoma's shoulders shook. Even through the veil, I could see the tears glittering. I glanced at Darius. He leaned close, his voice trembling. "The man in the suit, his name is Okonkwo. He's the one they call the broker. Nothing moves in this city without his hand. If you go against him, then he bleeds like the rest," I said. Auntie Kay's voice buzzed in my ear. "Captain, stand by. 2 units inside already. We move at your signal." I drew a slow breath. The drummers shifted rhythm. The bride was being lifted, guided toward the groom. It was now. I stepped forward, slipping between guests, my eyes locked on Ifeoma. Then, in a single clear moment, she looked up. Through the veil, her gaze caught mine. Recognition flared. Hope sparked. She remembered me. I lifted my hand slightly, a soldier's signal, subtle but sure. Her lips parted beneath the veil, a silent plea. That was all I needed. I raised my voice loud enough to cut through the drums. "Stop this wedding!" The drums faltered. Heads turned. Murmurs rippled. Chief Namdi's hand froze in midair. All eyes swung to me. And then, the man in the suit, Okonkwo, smiled, slowly, deliberately. "Well," he said, his voice calm but caring, "it seems the captain has decided to join us." The compound fell into silence, save for the restless pound of my heartbeat. For a moment, silence blanketed the compound. The drummers lowered their sticks, the dancers froze mid-step, and the only sound was the restless flapping of the bride's veil in the breeze. Dozens of eyes burned into me. Guests, elders, children, even the vendors balancing trays of jollof and suya. All of Lekki seemed to lean in, waiting to see what fool had dared to split tradition with a single sentence. Chief Namdi's face hardened like drying clay. His cheeks quivered as he gripped the microphone stand, his voice booming across the compound. "Who dares?" I stepped forward, my wrapper swishing against my legs, my chin high. "Captain Maya Johnson, military police. This ceremony cannot continue." Gasps erupted, followed by scattered murmurs. Some guests pressed closer to see, while others shrank back, whispering. Chief Namdi pointed a thick finger at me. Military, you disgrace yourself here. This is family business, not army ground. Ifeoma trembled under her veil. I caught her eyes again. Fear, hope, both blazing in equal measure. Okonkwo, the broker, smiled faintly from his post near the elders' table. He did not move, but his stillness was louder than any shout. The smile on his lips was like a blade wrapped in silk. This is no family business, I said, my voice carrying. This is a forced marriage. This girl, your daughter, already tried to escape. She was hunted in the night like an animal. She begged not to be taken. And you still call this tradition? A heavy silence dropped again. Then a wave of murmurs swelled, spreading across the compound like a storm tide. Some guests shook their heads, whispering to one another. Others frowned, lips pursed, avoiding my eyes. Chief Namdi slammed his palm on the table. Lies, all lies. This woman is an intruder. Guards. At his command, two burly men in matching uniforms stepped forward from the side of the canopy, machetes sheathed at their belts. Their eyes gleamed with obedience, not thought. I squared my shoulders, my hand brushing the badge at my hip. The first man who touches me will face the law, and the law does not forgive easily. Still, they stepped closer. Wait. Okonkwo's voice was calm, but it rolled over the compound with command. The guards froze instantly. The guests fell into hushed silence. The broker stood, unfolding himself like a shadow peeling away from the wall. He adjusted his cufflinks, then clasped his hands behind his back. His eyes never left mine as he walked slowly toward the center. Captain Johnson, he said, voice smooth as palm oil. We meet again. You should have stayed in your house. I told you then, I replied, my voice steady. Every stolen girl is my fight. He stopped a few paces away, studying me like a chess master studying the last piece on the board. You mistake what you see. This is not abduction. This is custom. A father securing the future of his daughter, respectable families joining, wealth preserved. You call it crime. We call it legacy. I stepped forward, closing the distance. Legacy doesn't leave bruises on a bride's wrists. Legacy doesn't buy silence with threats. Legacy doesn't make daughters cry behind veils. A murmur rippled again, louder this time. Elders shifted uneasily. Younger guests craned their necks, their faces a mix of confusion and curiosity. Chief Namdi's face burned red. Enough! Take her out! The guards surged forward again, machetes flashing. But just as they closed in, a whistle pierced the air. Sharp, shrill. The compound gates burst open. Two unmarked Hilux trucks rolled in, tires grinding against gravel, blue lights flickering faint on their dashboards. Armed officers jumped down, rifles slung, moving with precision. At their head, Auntie Kay, her headscarf fierce, her presence undeniable. This ceremony is suspended, she barked, her voice cutting through the drums that had fallen silent. By order of the Lagos Military Police, and with full cooperation of local authorities, no one leaves until statements are taken. The crowd exploded in gasps and cries. Mothers pulled their children close. Men whispered angrily, and the drummers lowered their sticks entirely. Chief Namdi bellowed, "This is an outrage!" Auntie Kay fixed him with a cold stare. "This is justice." Okonkwo didn't flinch. He only smiled, a faint curve of lips. "Captain," he said softly to me, "you've made powerful enemies today." I held his gaze. Enemies are easy to count. Saved lives are harder to measure. He chuckled once, low, then turned smoothly, retreating back toward the elders' table. He did not fight, not here, not with uniforms and rifles crowding the compound. But his calm was more terrifying than any outburst. As chaos buzzed, I stepped closer to Ifeoma. She flinched, then stilled as I gently lifted her veil. Her eyes shone wet, cheeks streaked with tears. "You're safe," I whispered. "You don't have to go through with this." Her lips trembled, and then the words spilled out in a rush, barely louder than the drums had been. "Thank you. Please don't let them take me again." "I won't," I promised. "Not now, not ever." She clutched my hand like a lifeline, her grip stronger than I expected. Later, as officers dispersed the crowd and statements were taken, I stood in the shadow of the canopy, watching Okonkwo slip away through a side gate. No one stopped him. No one dared. Darius appeared beside me, pale and shaken. His voice cracked. "You don't understand. Men like him, he won't stop. Not for you. Not for anyone. He'll come back." I didn't take my eyes off the gate. "Then let him. I'll be waiting." By dawn, the compound had emptied of its colors, leaving only scraps of fabric on the ground, wilted flowers and the lingering echo of drums. The wedding had ended not with joy, but with shame and whispers. Guests filed out in silence, elders muttering about curses, and Chief Namdi retreating behind his gilded gates, his face dark as a storm. Ifeoma had been taken under police protection, her small hands trembling as she clutched the hem of my wrapper. She didn't say much, but every time her eyes met mine, she nodded as if to remind herself I was real, not a dream. That look alone was worth every risk. But Okonkwo's absence screamed louder than the drums ever had. He had left deliberately, smoothly, without resistance. The kind of exit a man makes when he knows he hasn't lost, only delayed. At headquarters later that morning, I sat across from Auntie Kay in a small briefing room. The blinds were half drawn, sunlight striping her face. Her fingers tapped on the folder marked Ifeoma Oba Namdi. Case file. "You disobeyed protocol," she began. "I prevented a forced marriage," when I countered. "You spoke out before we were fully positioned. You exposed yourself, and now the broker knows your name, your face, your life. Do you understand what that means?" I leaned forward, my hands flat on the table. "It means he'll come, and when he does, we'll be ready." Auntie Kay's lips pressed into a hard line. "You think this is a movie? These men are not street boys. They own businesses. Politicians owe them favors. Police take their money. Soldiers too." She paused, eyes narrowing. "I've buried officers who thought they could fight shadows with fists." My jaw tightened. "Then let me be the one who fights different. Let me be the one who doesn't bury her oath." Silence. Her eyes softened just slightly, though her tone stayed sharp. "You carry too much fire, Maya. Fire can burn enemies, but it can also burn you." When I returned home that evening, the duplex on Freedom Way felt colder than ever. The pepper soup pot still sat on the stove, hardened broth clinging to its sides like a scar. The chairs were askew from last night's struggle. Darius was there, sitting at the table, his face hollow. He looked up when I entered, guilt heavy in his eyes. "You won," he whispered. "No," I said, dropping my bag. "We paused the fight. Winning comes later." He rubbed his palms together nervously. "They'll come for me. For us. You don't know, Okonkwo." "I know enough," I said. He stood abruptly, his voice cracking. "Maya, please. We can leave. Tonight. Fly to Ghana, South Africa. Anywhere. Start fresh." I stared at him, incredulous. "Run. After what you've done. After almost delivering a girl into slavery dressed as silk?" His shoulders sagged. He sat again, burying his face in his hands. "I didn't want this life. I just wanted to be more than nothing. And he offered me a way." "You sold pieces of yourself to him," I said coldly, "and now you're afraid to pay the price." Silence stretched. He didn't argue. He didn't look at me. And that told me everything. Night fell heavy, and with it came the storm. Rain hammered against the corrugated roof, lightning slashing the sky in jagged arcs. I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching water run in rivers down the street. That's when I saw it. A black SUV, parked 2 houses down, its engine off but its presence louder than thunder. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Captain Johnson, brave move at the wedding. Brave, but costly. Step aside now, and maybe we leave your husband alive. Persist, and you bury him yourself." I clenched my jaw, gripping the phone so tight my knuckles whitened. Another buzz. "Decide quickly. Tomorrow Ifeoma returns to her father, or she disappears forever." Lightning flashed, and in that split-second glow, I saw a silhouette in the SUV, motionless, watching. I rose from the chair, my heart steady, my decision already made. The next morning, I walked into the briefing room before dawn. Auntie Kay was already there, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "They're watching me," I said. "They sent a message. They're not done." She nodded slowly. "Good. Then we use it. We bait them into making a mistake." I squared my shoulders. "I'm ready." She studied me for a long moment. "It won't just be you they come for, Maya. It will be anyone you love. Anyone they can reach." My throat tightened. For a moment, Darius's face flashed in my mind. Broken, guilty, still mine in name, if not in truth. "I'll protect who I can," I said, "but I won't stop." The morning air was deceptively gentle, carrying the scent of wet earth after last night's storm. But my chest was tight. I knew peace never lasted when men like Okonkwo circled nearby. At the barracks, the day began like any other. Soldiers jogging in formation, boots striking pavement in rhythm, rifles gleaming in the early sun. Yet beneath the normalcy, whispers ran through the ranks. Everyone had heard about the wedding, about the captain who stood in the middle of tradition and broke its back with her voice. Some admired me. Others shook their heads, muttering about fire that burns too bright. Inside the operations room, maps stretched across the wall, pins marking routes, safe houses, suspected properties linked to the broker. Auntie Kay stood at the front, her face carved from stone. "Intelligence confirms Okonkwo is moving fast," she began. "Ifeoma is safe for now, but there are whispers her father has filed to reclaim her custody, calling her a confused girl misled by outsiders. If he succeeds, she'll be placed back into his compound legally." Anger flared in my gut. "So the system helps him bind her in silk while we fight shadows." Auntie Kay nodded grimly. "That's how power works. He owns men in high places. He won't use knives where signatures can do the killing." I clenched my fists. "Then we expose him before the ink dries." Auntie Kay's gaze settled on me. "And risk becoming the target yourself?" "You already are. He parked outside your home. He sent you messages. Your bait. He'll strike where you are weakest." Her words stabbed deeper than she knew, because I already knew where I was weakest. Darius. When I returned to the duplex that evening, Darius was pacing like a man on hot coals. His shirt was damp with sweat, though the fan spun furiously overhead. "They called me," he blurted the moment I stepped inside. My blood chilled. "Who?" He swallowed hard. "Okonkwo's men. They said, if I don't convince you to back down, they'll make me vanish. They'll make us vanish." I studied him carefully. His eyes darted. His hands trembled. Fear I could understand. But something else lingered there too. Temptation. The same hunger that had led him to the deal in the first place. "What did you tell them?" I asked sharply. He hesitated. "Too long." "I told them nothing. I told them you don't listen to me." My jaw tightened. "Good, because you're right. I don't." But deep down, doubt gnawed at me. Could I trust him? Or had he already sold me, the way he'd almost sold Ifeoma? That night, sleep refused me. I sat by the window again, watching shadows crawl across the street. The black SUV wasn't there anymore. But absence didn't mean safety. It meant patience. Sometime past midnight, my phone buzzed. A video message. I pressed play. The screen lit up with a shaky recording. A dark warehouse. Chains clinked in the background. Then a voice, Okonkwo's, smooth and deliberate. "Captain Johnson, brave soldier, stubborn wife. You think you saved her, but the river still flows where it wishes. The girl will come home to her father soon. And you," his voice dipped lower, silkier, "you will learn what it means to lose." The camera panned. My stomach twisted. Darius. He was on his knees, blindfolded, his hands bound behind him. A bruise swelled across his cheek. His chest rose and fell with ragged breaths. Okonkwo's voice continued. "We do not like to harm family, but when family forgets its place, we remind them, loudly." The video ended. I stared at the screen, my blood running hot and cold all at once. So this was his move, not against me directly, but against the man who had betrayed me and yet still wore the name of husband. I dialed Auntie Kay immediately. She answered on the first ring. "They have him," I said, my voice low but steady. Okonkwo has Darius. Silence hummed on the line. Then her voice, sharp as steel. And you want to save him? He's my responsibility, I said. If they kill him, they think they've broken me. They will, she replied. Even if you don't love him anymore, they know he's your weak point. I closed my eyes, breathing slowly. She was right, but weakness could also be weapon, if I wielded it carefully. Find me that warehouse, I said. By dawn, intel streamed in. The video had been traced, an industrial district near Apapa, where abandoned buildings served as nests for smugglers. Dangerous ground, thick with shadows. Auntie Kay's voice crackled through comms as we prepared. We go in silent, secure the hostage, confirm Okonkwo's presence if possible. Do not, repeat, do not, engage recklessly. He thrives in chaos. Make him step into the light. I checked my gear, every motion precise. Badge secure, flashlight ready, baton clipped, heart steady. But inside, storms raged. Darius had betrayed me, humiliated me, nearly cost a young woman her freedom. Yet he was still my husband, if only in name. And if I let Okonkwo take him, I would hand the broker the victory he wanted, proof that I could be broken. The Hilux trucks rolled out under the cover of dawn mist, engines purring low. My fingers tapped against my thigh, restless, ready. Somewhere ahead, inside a crumbling warehouse, Okonkwo was waiting. And with him, Darius, kneeling, blindfolded, a pawn in a game larger than either of us. The fight was no longer about tradition, no longer about Ifeoma alone. It was war now, between me and a man who thought fear could bind the world. Viewers, if you were in Maya's position, would you risk everything to save Darius, even after his betrayal? Or would you let him face the consequences of his choices? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and share this video so more people can weigh in. The convoy slowed as we entered the Apapa Industrial District. Abandoned warehouses loomed like sleeping giants, their rusted tin roofs sagging, broken windows glaring like blind eyes. The air smelled of salt from the nearby port, mixed with the stench of oil and old smoke. I sat in the back of the Hilux, every muscle coiled, my eyes scanning the horizon. This was enemy ground. Every shadow could hold a watcher, every silence could explode into violence. Auntie Kay's voice came through the earpiece, low but sharp. 2 units sweep left. Johnson, you're with me on the right. Eyes up. No noise unless it's life or death. I nodded, tightening the strap of my baton. My sidearm pressed cold against my ribs, but I prayed it wouldn't need to sing tonight. We disembarked in silence, boots crunching against gravel slick with dew. The warehouse loomed ahead, its wide door half collapsed, paint peeling in long strips. From inside, faint light glimmered, swinging like a pendulum. And then, the sound, a muffled groan. Darius. My jaw clenched. Inside, the warehouse smelled of mold and iron. Crates were stacked in haphazard towers, casting jagged shadows across the concrete floor. Chains clinked faintly in the corner, where a single bulb swung overhead. There he was. Darius knelt on the floor, blindfolded, his wrists bound tight with rope. His shirt was torn, his lips split, his face a map of bruises. He tilted his head slightly, straining to hear, his breathing ragged. For a heartbeat, everything else disappeared. I saw the man I had once married, not the liar, not the coward, not the almost traitor, but the man who had held my hand under the stars and whispered promises. But then I remembered Ifeoma's terrified whisper, "Please don't let them take me," and the bruise on her wrist. And I remembered Darius's second phone, hidden like a snake under cloth. He was both things, the man I once loved and the man who had almost destroyed me. Auntie Kay's voice cut through the haze. 2 guards left flank. Johnson, cover. I shifted quickly, peering around the crates. 2 men lounged near the far wall, rifles slung loosely, chatting in low tones. Their overconfidence reeked. They hadn't expected anyone bold enough to follow the trail here. I gestured to the unit beside me, a silent nod. 1 step, another, and then, swift as shadow, we struck. My baton cracked against the first man's wrist, sending his rifle clattering. He howled, but my hand was already across his throat, forcing him silent against the wall. The second spun, but the soldier beside me drove him to the ground, pinning him with a knee to the chest. Two threats down, but the real one wasn't them. Captain Johnson. The voice slid out of the darkness, calm, deliberate. Okonkwo stepped into the light, his suit immaculate despite the grime of the warehouse. His hands were clasped behind his back, his face carrying that same infuriating smile. I knew you would come. I stood straighter, my baton still in hand. Release him, he chuckled softly. You speak as though you are the one giving orders here. Release him or this ends badly for you. He tilted his head. Badly? For me? No, Captain. For you. For him. For everyone who follows you. He walked closer, unhurried. His eyes glinted in the dim light. You've embarrassed powerful men, chiefs, elders. You interrupted a marriage that had millions riding on it. Do you think they will forgive? I don't care about forgiveness, I said coldly. I care about justice. He stopped a few feet from me, his smile fading into something harder. Justice, he repeated. A dangerous word. Justice doesn't feed the poor. Justice doesn't protect families when debts come due. Justice doesn't keep men like your husband from crawling to me, begging for scraps of power. Behind him, Darius stirred, his blindfolded head lifting. Maya, don't listen, he croaked. Okonkwo ignored him. You wear your badge like a shield, but even shields crack. And when they do, all that's left is flesh. Soft, bleeding, forgotten. I took one step closer, my voice sharp. You talk too much. For the first time, his eyes flickered. He gestured lightly with his hand. Men stepped out from the shadows, 6 of them, armed, rifles gleaming under the swinging bulb. The air thickened instantly. Auntie Kay's voice crackled in my ear. Units in position. We can storm, but it'll get bloody. What's your call, Johnson? My heart pounded, but my voice was steady. Hold, not yet. Okonkwo's smile returned, thin as a blade. Ah, you see? Even the lioness thinks before she pounces. He moved closer to Darius, crouching slightly. With 2 fingers, he lifted my husband's chin. Darius flinched, but the ropes kept him still. This man, Okonkwo said, his voice smooth, is a lesson. Weak men crumble when tested. They sell their honor for coins, and then they expect women like you to clean their mess. Why protect him? I stared at Darius, his swollen face, his trembling shoulders. Then I looked back at Okonkwo. Because protecting the weak is what makes me strong, and because leaving him to you would mean you win. That will never happen. For a moment, silence. Then Okonkwo laughed, low and cold. Then take him! He snapped his fingers. 2 of the armed men stepped forward, shoving Darius onto his feet. His knees buckled, but they forced him upright. Take him, Okonkwo repeated, his eyes locking on mine. But know this, Captain. Every time you save one, you lose 10. For every Ifeoma you steal back, 10 more will vanish. For every weak husband you rescue, 10 more will kneel. You cannot fight the tide. I stepped forward, my baton raised, my chest heaving with fury. Then I'll fight until the tide drowns me. Okonkwo smiled. So be it. The bulb overhead flickered once. Then in the same heartbeat, gunfire erupted. The warehouse shook with the roar of gunfire. Bullets sparked off rusted metal, echoing like thunder trapped inside steel walls. Crates splintered. The bulb overhead burst, and darkness swallowed everything except the quick flashes of muzzle fire. Cover right flank! Auntie Kay's voice tore through the comms. I dropped low, baton useless now, my hand flying to my sidearm. I squeezed off 2 shots. One struck a crate, the other clipped a man's leg. He went down screaming, his rifle skidding across the floor. Darius stumbled blindly, ropes still biting into his wrists, panic written across his bruised face. He lurched toward me, tripping over debris. I grabbed his arm, yanking him down beside me. Stay low, I barked. His voice cracked. Maya, I can't. Quiet. The shadows shifted again. Okonkwo's voice slithered through the chaos, calm as always, his words carrying over the noise. You see, Captain, This is the cost of your fire. Chaos, blood. You don't save. You destroy. I ground my teeth. His words were poison, meant to shake me. I pressed my back against a crate, heart steady, mind scanning the chaos like a battlefield map. 3 armed men pinned down Unit Bravo at the far entrance. 2 more flanked left, trying to encircle. Okonkwo stood beyond, untouched, watching with that infuriating calm. He never fired a shot. He didn't need to. His weapon was control. I took a breath, slid across the floor, and fired twice. One man spun and dropped. Another dove for cover. The balance tipped. "Advance!" Auntie Kay shouted. Our unit surged forward. Boots pounded. Rifles barked. The warehouse became a storm of grit and screams. In the chaos, Okonkwo began to retreat, gliding toward the back exit. Not this time. I rose, dragging Darius with me. "Move!" We dashed between crates, bullets hissing past. I shoved him down behind cover, then kept moving, eyes locked on the tall figure cutting through the dark. "Okonkwo!" I roared. He turned slightly, his silhouette framed by the faint light of the exit. "Captain Johnson!" he called back, his voice mocking. "The tide always returns." I fired. The shot cracked against the door frame as he slipped outside. I sprinted after him. The back alley was slick with rainwater, puddles gleaming under a faint street lamp. Okonkwo moved fast, his suit fluttering, his stride long and confident. I leveled my weapon. "Stop!" He didn't. I fired again, the bullet slicing past his shoulder. He stopped then, slowly turning, his face calm, his eyes gleaming like polished stone. "Do you think killing me ends this?" he asked, spreading his arms slightly. "I am not one man. I am many. Networks, families, generations. You shoot me, and 10 more rise." My finger tightened on the trigger. "Maybe, but at least you won't rise." For the first time, his smile faltered. Behind me, footsteps stumbled. Darius, struggling out the warehouse door, still bound, his face pale. "Maya, don't! If you kill him, they'll come harder. They'll—" "Shut up!" I snapped, eyes still locked on Okonkwo. And then sirens wailed in the distance. Police reinforcements drawn by the firefight. Okonkwo glanced toward the sound. His jaw clenched. He took one step backward into shadow. I fired again. The bullet ripped into his leg. He staggered, collapsing against the wall, his hand gripping his thigh. His eyes blazed with fury. But still, he laughed. "You think you've won?" he spat. "You've declared war you cannot win." The sirens grew louder. Boots pounded behind me. Auntie Kay's unit pouring into the alley, rifles raised. Okonkwo lifted his hand slowly, his face still twisted with that maddening calm. "Take me then. Parade me. But remember, chains break. And when they do, you'll regret you didn't kill me here." Hours later, the warehouse was secured. Men were cuffed, evidence bagged, statements written. Okonkwo sat in chains, still smirking, still whispering threats. He would be processed, interrogated, charged. But I knew men like him rarely stayed caged for long. His true punishment wasn't the cell, it was the exposure. The mask had cracked. I stood outside, the dawn breaking pale over the port. The city stirred again, oblivious to the war fought in its shadows. Darius sat on the curb, his wrists finally free, his eyes swollen with tears he refused to let fall. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice hoarse. I looked at him, my heart heavy but firm. "Sorry doesn't undo betrayal. You almost destroyed me. You almost destroyed her. And still, I saved you. Not because you deserved it, but because I refused to let Okonkwo write the end of our story." He dropped his head into his hands. "What happens now?" I stared at the horizon, the sun bleeding gold across the water. "Now? You live with what you've done, and I keep fighting for every girl like Ifeoma, for every man like you who lost his way, for every shadow that thinks it can own this city." That evening, I visited Ifeoma at the hospital. She sat by the window, her arm bandaged, her eyes still wide with exhaustion. But when she saw me, she smiled faintly. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "Yes," I said softly, "and I'll keep it again. As many times as it takes." She reached for my hand. "You're not like them. You're not afraid. I squeezed gently. Oh, I am afraid. Every day. But fear is just another enemy, and enemies can be beaten. Her smile grew, fragile but real. As I walked back into the evening, the streets alive with voices and music, I felt the weight of it all. The fight wasn't over. Men like Okonkwo would rise again, wearing new suits, speaking new lies. But I was still here. And as long as I was, the tide would not flow unchallenged. Because when my new husband raised his hand on me, he thought he was striking weakness. He didn't know he was awakening a soldier. And when Okonkwo tried to own the city with fear, he didn't know fear had already chosen its enemy. Me, Captain Maya Johnson. And I wasn't done yet. In the end, I realized strength isn't just in fists or uniforms. It's in refusing to let anyone decide your worth, your fate, or your fight. And that was the lesson the whole city would learn, whether it was ready or not.